Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And let me know that you guys can see it. Are we good? Jasmine, can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So with DocGens, I would say that the first thing that you should really be concerned with is where you're going to place your DocGens. So right now we're in our sandbox. So here I have a project up. Where you place your DocGen is really important because that's where you're going to be pulling some of your data from, and it will also limit other data that maybe you won't be able to pull in. So we have our static sections. If you're familiar with Filevine a little bit, the intake section is a static section, or other sections that really just have one form. You only enter the data once, versus our collection sections where you're gonna hit add an item and you can kind of enter the data in multiple instances. So depending on where you want to place your DocGen, you would put a widget in that DocGen, but there are some limitations. For example, if you're in a collection section with a DocGen, you cannot pull other collection section data or very limited data from other collection sections. But no matter what section you're in, you can pull in static data, like your intake section. So it's important to kind of know where you're going to put your widget for your DocGen. And then once you kind of have an idea, we have to work on the back end to kind of place that widget. So I'm going to be doing a welcome letter today. Let's see if I have it open. Okay, so I'm going to be doing a basic welcome letter, and I'm going to be putting this in our intake section. So it's just going to pull pretty much basic static data. So I have my letter open. Typically you would have your own template, and you should have that one open. And then you're going to kind of look at the pieces that you can pull from Filevine that are kind of client or project specific. So I'm going to lower this for a second. The first thing we want to do, again, we know we're going to be placing it in the intake section. I'm going to place it towards the bottom. So now I have to go into the back end, which I have. Let's use this one. I'm going to go to advanced. And I have to go to customs editor to first place that widget there. So I'm going to select my project type, which is personal injury. And then our sections are going to come up. So I'm going to do this right in the intake section. And I know that I'm doing it all the way at the bottom. So I can just go ahead and add a field and it will automatically place it in the last row. So this is a widget, not a field. So you want to make sure you're selecting widget, and then you have two options for DocGens. You can do a single button where you're just going to place one template. I don't really recommend those because chances are you may want to add another type of document. So I typically stick with the DocGen multi-template. This way you can add more than one template in that widget. So I'm going to name this widget. We can do welcome letter. And then while you're here with DocGens, you can have it apply an auto tag, and then you can also have it auto move to a folder. So in this case, I'm just going to do it to intake. You may have a client correspondence folder that you want to add it to, but I'm just going to do intake. And then I also wanted to share always, so I'm going to leave that alone and hit create. Now I'm going to go over and just do a quick refresh in our project just to make sure it's there. So here we have that widget. Now that the widget is there, we can go ahead and code our document and kind of create it. So I'm going to go back on the back end, and I'm going to go over to DocGen setup. So this is where we're going to get our codes for our letter, and where we're going to place our letter where we want it. So once we go to DocGen setup, we're going to choose our project type again. And then we're going to choose the section again, placement. And we're going to do intake. If you have more than one widget in the intake section, it will give you a drop down for those widgets as well. So while you're here, you can see this field list. this field list contains all of the fields that you can include in this DocGen. So that's why it's, again, the placement is important because this list may change. So we're just gonna hit that open and it's gonna give us a lot of codes that we can place in the document.
Yeah, so because the list changes, you'll want to make sure that if whatever section you're in, you just open up a new field list to make sure that it's the most accurate as far as the codes that you can actually place in the document. And like Danielle said, this list is quite long, so it does sometimes take a while to load. There are a ton of codes, but once it finally finishes loading, you'll know because there'll be the ability for you to use like the little clipboard option to copy the codes easily. So just give it a few seconds to load. You can always go do something else on another page if you want, and then come back if you know you have other stuff that you need to do.
We're almost there. So while this is still going, so these little copy icons just populated, so we're pretty much there. But it's also really important, well, it's useful to have your section open, right? Or at least your project, so you know what the field names are on the front end, even though they can differ from the selector on the back end. And also your document. So let's pull open the document. So I have this here, and then we also have our codes here. So we're just gonna start coding it. So this is a letter. I know that I want to change the date, right? I want that obviously to pull the date that I'm generating the letter. So we have this date, and right here at the top, there's 2 dates. So it shows you over here how it's going to generate. I want the today long, so I'm just going to copy that. It will turn green once you copy it successfully, and then I'll come here, highlight this, and hit Control V. Here we have the client's address. So there's a couple of ways to do this. I definitely recommend, because as you can see over here, there are way too many fields to kind of go through. If you do a Command or a Control F, and then you can kind of search for either the actual name of the field, or if it's like client, stuff like that, you can just start searching for that. So I'm just going to do client, and then it kind of brings us to that list. And I am looking for not just the client full name. You can do that, but with an address block, they actually kind of make it easier for you. So if we scroll down here, we'll see client address block, which is right here. So this right here, client address block 1, we hit copy, is actually going to give us the name and the address in this kind of format. So I'm just going to hit Control V for that, hit return. I'm not sure if you're familiar with merge codes in Word, but you do want to kind of, you know, place the code where you typically would as if you were writing the information yourself. So spaces, commas, etc. You want to make sure you're including that.
And the difference between the addresses, each contact card has the ability to have 8 addresses, 8 phone numbers, 8 emails. And so those correlate to the addresses that you have in the contact card. So the first address that you have in the contact card is going to be address 1. The second address that you have, if you do, is going to be address 2, so on and so forth. So you want to make sure that when you all are going in to add these, that the first address is the one that you're trying to send stuff to, or if it's always going to be the second address, that's always the code that you're going to use so that the accurate information is pulling into the document.
Yeah. And also, while we're here, speaking to the contact card, the way that you enter stuff in Filevine is the way that it's going to pull into your documents. So you just want to be mindful of that. For example, if you're going to be using the prefix to kind of write Dear Miss Penny, you want to make sure you're including a period so that it pulls in properly. Same thing for the address. You want to make sure you're capitalizing your words, you know, because that's how it's going to pull in. So you'll have to do less editing on the other side. Okay, so our next line is your MVA on January 1st, 2024. So I'm going to close this out. So if I go to the intake section, I know that here it's going to give us the incident type. So I can pull that right in. Let's go to our codes. It also might be something different.
Called accident type, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Mm. Okay, so that's a good, like, kind of troubleshooting that the field name is not always the same as the selector. So this is the field name and this is the selector, so sometimes you do have to play around with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this, turn green, we're good. I'm gonna place it here. Make sure there's a space after the code and the word. And then here we have the date of the incident. So, which is right here. And it's okay that it goes to the next line. Chances are when it generates, it will be, all in one line. And then when here we have Mr. John Smith, I'm gonna take this out. And we'll go back to our client.
And instead of scrolling, you can even get more granular and press a space and actually type out salutation if you'd like. If you don't want to, if you're not as familiar, Danielle has done tons of DocGens, so she's familiar with kind of where they fall on this list. But if you're kind of just starting out, you can always, in that search bar, continue typing the exact field so that it's a little bit shorter of a list.
So here I have client prefix, I'm gonna do a space, and then we're gonna take client last name here.
And as Danielle mentioned in the contact card, you want to make sure that if you're typing in the salutation box, that it's a salutation. If you're typing in the prefix box, you all would know kind of all of that. So if you do have a salutation, if that's where you're putting the Mr. or Mrs., that's the code you're pulling. If you're putting it as a prefix, then you'd put it, pull the prefix. So it's just really what works for you all and how you all are utilizing Filevine.
Okay, so now we have, it was so nice to meet you at our office on January 2nd. So we're gonna take the intake date for this. And we'll also, well, let's pull the code first. It may be, let's go to our case. So we have date of intake, so I'll look for that. Here we go. So I'm gonna take this date, copy that, and I'm gonna paste it here. But I don't want it to appear with the slashes. Instead, I want it to be spelled out. So at the bottom of the field codes are some modifiers. So if you scroll all the way down, you'll see here that we have our date field modifiers. So if we want the output to kind of look like this, we have to add this line in between our fields code, which we've already pasted, and then the format after in order to get this output. So I want it to look like this. So I'm just going to add the line and then long date. Be careful of the capitalization because it won't pull in properly. So here, I'm just going to go here, space, and then long date. Yes, okay. So then that should extend our date. We wanted to thank you for the opportunity to represent you in this motor vehicle accident. So I already have this up here, so I'm just going to take this right here, copy that. Make sure there's a space, and then that occurred on January 1st, 2024. Again, we have the incident date up here, so I'm just going to pull it here. And I'm also going to add this long date modifier. And then here we have the time and the location. So I'm going to look in our case and just kind of see where we're getting that from. We have time of incident here and location of incident. So I'll go over to my codes. Oh, I know what just happened there. Okay. So I'm going to take this time of accident and place this here. And then also the time of incident is also kind of important to what Jasmine was speaking about before. If you don't put in the AM or PM, it's not going to pull over. So it's just, be mindful of what you're entering in your system. And then the other one is our location of incident. And I'm just going to copy that. And make sure you put the period after. And now as we get to the bottom, here we have, so a paralegal, me, and then we have Derek Hoffman, who's our attorney, but obviously this can change per case if you have teams. So I'm gonna go over to our case and see where I would find that. This is in our case summary section. And we have a lead attorney and paralegal. So I'm just gonna go over here. It's a static section as well, the case summary section. So I'm just gonna look up lead attorney.
Danielle, we have a question. How do
Yeah.
you make a determination on which type of DocGen technology to use? So a DocGen, a Fusion, FEDA, or Outlaw
Mhm.
document?
Okay, so DocGens are pretty basic, but they are limited. So you can pull a lot of static data, but when you get to your collection sections, that's where you kind of run into some issues. For example, like in a settlement statement, if you wanted to pull your medical data, which is, it's a collection section, you wouldn't be able to pull this information as well as the next item's information with a DocGen. So in a case like that, you would need to kind of run a fusion where you're creating reports and then kind of fusing them together in a document, which is a lot more complex than a DocGen. FEDA, and Jasmine could probably speak to this a little bit further, makes fusions 10 times easier. So instead of having to create all these reports and fusing them together, you can pull codes from these collection sections and it will pull in the different items for you and you can kind of specify it how you want. It's a lot easier to kind of do. Jasmine, if you want to talk about FEDA a little bit.
Yeah, so I see a lot of folks that have FEDA put most of their documents, if not all of them, into Outlaw or FEDA, they're the same. The benefit of that is you can combine documents. So if you have two different LORs, for instance, and one's like a bodily injury, and the other one is, for something else, you're able to combine those and use conditional logic. And with FEDA documents, you can place them anywhere. So it doesn't have to be housed in the section that you're pulling the data from. A DocGen would have to be placed in the section that you're using the DocGen from, that you're gathering the information from. And a fusion, like Danielle mentioned, is a lot more complex. Most folks don't know how to do fusions. They require a high level of reporting so that you can get the correct data and then also being able to put that data into a usable format, into a document, make sure that it pulls correctly. And so folks usually avoid those. With FBDA, again, you don't have to do a lot of fusions. The only time that you probably wouldn't want to use FBDA or Outlaw is depending on the view that you're looking for. Outlaw, while they're releasing tons of new capabilities for it, it's not a word processor currently. And so there are some limitations in the way that your document is going to look, as far as like tabbing items and things like that. And so that's really the only issue that I ever see with clients, but most of the time they're completely fine with doing their documents in FBDA if they have it. And then again, if you don't have FEDA and you're just trying to choose between a DocGen and a Fusion, you would want to look at the data that you're pulling from. If you're pulling multiple collection section data, you're going to need to do a Fusion. If you want to pull more than one medical information, so right now, if you were to do a DocGen in a collection section, it would only pull this data. It wouldn't pull any other provider information or anything like that. You would need to do a Fusion essentially to be able to pull in more than one item from a collection section into one document. So that's kind of the differences there. If you do have FBDA, would recommend putting most of your documents into there. And we have in our website some videos on FBDA. So for those of you that don't have it, that are like, what is that? You can watch videos there on it. We've also done a free help session on it, so you can kind of get some insight there. And if you do have questions specifically about it or need a demo, you can reach out to us and we can definitely get that on the books. Perfect. Sorry, Danielle. You were paralegal and attorneys.
Yes, paralegal and attorneys. Okay, so when you're in your fields, you'll see here that this is in the teams, I looked for lead attorney, but the team section is a little bit different. That's not where I really want to pull this. The team is going to be coming from your team section, your roles, and that's not where I'm looking for it to pull. I'm looking for it to pull in the case summary. So you want to make sure you're pulling it from the right spot. So you can kind of, oh, I have to spell it right. Hang on. Okay. Let's try this. There we go. Okay, so now we're in the case summary, and you can see that by the, oh, it brought me here again. My computer is running slow, sorry. Okay, we're here. There we go. So you can see that in the selector, the first part of it is usually your section. So that's how to kind of distinguish between whether we're in the case summary section or the team section. So we're here for the lead attorney. I just want to pull their name right now. So you can kind of type it out, or we can just kind of look for it. Name. So we're going to go with this. Go back to our document. Put that there. And then I also want to find the paralegal. There we go. And as you do it more, you'll start to kind of learn them. The ones you use often anyway. And if I wanted to pull the phone number for the attorney, I can do that as well. There we go. So I'm going to pull the first phone, just like Jasmine said about the addresses, it will pull the first in line. So this is going to pull the first phone number. Okay. Now over here, this is seen a lot in, especially with law firms. So it's the attorney and then who's kind of writing the letter on their behalf. So when I was in a law firm, what we did was we use the nickname in the contact cards for initials. This is something you have to decide internally if you want to do it, but that's what I did when I was in a firm. So for example, for me as a paralegal, my nickname is DR. If I pull in this code, that's how it will appear. And then the same for Derek. He's an attorney, so his were capitalized. That's how we did it. So in this one, I'm just going to do the nickname for the lead attorney here. Without a space, a slash, and then we can pull the paralegal's nickname.
And if you decide you don't want to use the nickname for that, you can add just a field that says initials in the contact card that pops up when you see when you select your case type as firm staff or something along those lines. So there's a couple of options that you can do because the contact card is customizable. At least that second and third kind of tab for us are customizable. So you can always add it into here as well and only show when the contact type equals firm staff or something like that. Under contact info, nickname is always going to show. So if you don't want to add that extra step, you can definitely add it in there if you're not using that for something else.
Okay, so it looks like we have our DocGen done. So we're just going to save it. And then we're going to upload it to our doc generation again here. You're just going to hit add a template. And let's go to here. And this should be it. If any of your codes are wrong, you might get a like an error telling you can't upload it.
And if you're not seeing the document, you may want to make sure it's saved as a docx. Docs usually don't save.
Right, true. Once it's uploaded, you'll see these icons to the right. This is to download it. This is to upload a new version. This is to edit the one that you already have in. And then this is to delete it. And of course, add a new template or another template in addition to this one. If you wanted to edit this down the line. Well, you know what, let's go generate it. Now that it's uploaded, let's go to our project. We're just gonna do a quick refresh. And we'll go to the bottom. Not an intake, hang on. And now we should see our welcome letter there. So I'm just gonna hit that, and I am gonna hit generate. Now, of course, if there is a field that you have in your DocGen, but there's no data in Filevine, it's not gonna pull in into your letter. So here's our letter. And it populated everything it needed to. The reason why this asterisk is there is because in our intake section, we do have that asterisk next to motor vehicle collision. So we can always just erase that here. To edit it, you're gonna hit this edit button over here, and it will open up in Word. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this out. Here's our date, and then over here you can see it showed us the spelled out date. And get rid of this asterisk. And it pretty much did everything else. Does anyone have any questions on this?
Yeah, so for DocGens, regardless of what section they put the widget in, can pull from any static section, but only data from the collection section the widget lives in. Yes, that is correct. It can pull from any static section. Your static codes are always going to stay the same, no matter what section you pull it in. But if you're trying to pull any collection data that's not like averages, highest, like total meds, anything like that, if you want like specific provider information or individual final balances or anything like that, you would have to make it live in a collection section. But if you have FVDA, that's not the case. But for a DocGen, yes.
Okay, so our document is good. We can print it. It's automatically saved in our projects. We can do anything we need to with it. I'm just gonna hit save, get rid of that.
So the edits that Danielle just made in Word do reflect into Filevine. And so when you hit that icon that says edit and open in Microsoft Word, it automatically creates a connection between Filevine and Microsoft Word for you to be able to go in and track those changes. You'll see the asterisk has already been removed. Based off of that, you'll know that you're editing in Microsoft Word because after the title of your document, there'll be a series of numbers and letters. That's a good indication that whatever changes you make here will be saved into Filevine. The edits that you're making here on this page are going to be reflected only in this generation of the document, not for your template. So just this one time, they'll be kind of edited, updated, any changes that you make here. Without having to re-upload the document or anything like that, you'll just press save, and then you can exit out of it like you saw Danielle do, and those changes were reflected here in Filevine. You'll see there's no asterisk anymore. And then you'll see there's a lock button currently on her kind of template there. That's indicating that somebody has the document open and is editing it. We just saw Danielle exit out of that. So if you refresh your page, typically that will go away if the person is exited out of it. Sometimes it takes a little while for it to reflect in Filevine. So a refresh will kind of give you the most up-to-date status for your document. If it's still being edited by someone, you do have the ability to unlock it. Unlocking it will let you know that, hey, whatever changes that other person made will not be reflected in this document. So be cautious when you're unlocking documents.
And we can also see that the document is saved in the intake folder that we configured it to do. And if it is locked, when you're in the document section, you'll see it here too. It will tell you who is in that document. If you wanted to update the template, let's say a month goes by, you want to add language to it, you can come right back to the DocGen setup and go back to that template. and just double click that template on the back end. And you'll see your template here. And then if you hit this edit button here, it's going to open that template in Word. And again, you have your letters and numbers indicating that right now any changes you make in it are going to be reflected in the template in Filevine. So if I wanted to add, you know, an enter there, or maybe I want more space over here, or to say yours truly instead, and I go ahead and hit save. We know it's saved. I can X out of that, X out of this. Now, if I do a quick refresh, go back to our intake section and hit generate again. You can see here that those updates have been made for the template.
And again, the asterisks are still there because this is a new generation of the document. So you will have to go back in to make that edit. Once you
have any go ahead, Jasmine.
No, I was just going to say we can go over the like little caret or arrow, whatever it is next to the document. I always call it a caret. There are a series of options. You can also edit from this page. So if you don't want to double click to open it, you are able to edit the document from this drop down. You can update this version, add tags. How can DocGen or FVDA be used to fill out forms? Look, sorry. With FVDA, you can assign blank spaces to be filled out by another party. So you would essentially create a party variable and say, hey, this field, and this field are things that need to be filled out by the client instead of pulling in. Well, you could pull in data from Filevine and change the way that it syncs. So once it's updated in Outlaw, it pushes into Filevine. There are some limitations with that. Contact cards are not usually able to be pulled from Outlaw and pushed into Filevine. They can only be pulled in from Filevine and pushed into the document. But you can do Outlaw variables, which are essentially just variables that you create for things that need to be filled out but maybe aren't being tracked in Filevine for them to go in and need to complete essentially. We do have some videos on our website on FVDA, so that might be like a good starting point if you're trying to figure out how to do those outlaw variables. We also do trainings and implementations for FVDA. So if you've just gotten FVDA and you are like, hey, we'd like a training, we do offer a variety of services kind of in line with that and can help you out with that for sure. Sorry, but the drop down menu allows you to add tags in. Tags are ways for you to categorize your documents, your contacts, your projects, whatever. You're able to filter, you're able to sort, and you're also able to use tags as criteria when you go to run reports. You can move or copy a document. So if you have maybe a document that you've generated here that needs to go to another case, right? You have multiple plaintiffs. They each have their own case. You want this document to reflect in all of the other plaintiffs' cases as well. You can move and or copy that document. You'll just select the project and then move or copy. Once you select kind of the destination it should go into from that new project. Moving it will remove it completely from this project and put it into the other. Copy will obviously add a copy to both. Also in that drop down, you have the ability to send to VineSign to rename the document. So if you don't want it to say welcome letter and the date and you want it to rather say the client's name, you can do that there. Note, this is a really cool feature. It allows you to take that document and essentially put it into the activity feed so that if you want someone to look at that document, they don't have to go scouring through the document section or come into the intake section to find it. You're just able to say, hey, here's the document. You'll post it and they'll be able to access that document directly from the activity feed. Yeah, note, this is really, really cool. I feel like it's underutilized and people just don't know about it. So Definitely love that little tidbit. If you do have VineSign, you can get it sent directly to VineSign from there. You can also create a share link, which allows other folks to be able to view the document. You can change kind of when or how long that document gets shared for, who it's shared with, all of that. And then you should be able to edit a PDF in DocGen, similar to how you did Word. There's like a few little intricacies. I'm not sure if we have any videos on that. We can double check. Or if we have time, maybe we can run through kind of what that looks like. But the other options kind of in this drop down are the ability for you to download, preview, email, fax, those items there. So would recommend anything that you're doing on this intake page, you can also do in the documents section. So these drop downs to be able to note this and to VineSign, anything like that are also listed here. Our document went directly into an intake folder based off of what Danielle set up in that very first piece there. You do have the ability to auto add to a folder and also auto tag it. So if you don't want to have to come in here and do this tag option for each time your welcome letter gets generated, you're able to go ahead and add in those auto tags when you do add that widget in. Is it possible to see a report or something like that on expiring links? That's a good question. I've never tried to run a report on expiring links. We can definitely look into that. Let's go ahead and see. And Danielle, I don't know if you have a PDF that you can demo, or if
I do have a small one. It does tend to run a little slow, but we can try and run through it. It kind of almost crashed my computer before, but we can try. It's whenever you wanna.
Yep. I'm gonna look into the report, but I guess you could do the PDF while I try to do that.
Okay, so PDFs are a little bit different in that you need to create a form for your PDF first. So I'm gonna open up just a basic, where is this? Let's see. Okay, hang on, I'm just pulling it out over here. Okay. So you have to create a form with these boxes first so that Filevine knows where to kind of place those codes. So I just did a very basic form. I typed out name and email and I used prepare a form to kind of get these blue boxes here. So once you do that, again, you want to be mindful of where you're putting your document, and we can go to the back end and you're going to do the same thing. So we can go hit this button right here and I'm just going to select my PDF DocGen. And once that's uploaded, we'll do the next step. Takes a minute. Okay. So now that it's uploaded, there are no codes in it. So what I have to do is I'm gonna click on it and then I'm gonna use this settings feature and it's gonna look a little bit different. So it's gonna have a preview of the document on the left. And then what it does is it numbers these fields. So it's kind of hard to see, but you'll see this is field number 1. So we're going to put in the code over here for name, which is field number 1. And then for date of birth, it's number 2. So we're going to enter that here. Obviously, if you have a longer document, you're going to have a lot of fields here. So then we're just going to start kind of typing out what we're looking for. So for this, we want the client name. So we can start just kind of typing that out. And this is where my computer crashed before. Oh, okay, we're good. So I'm going to do client full name here. And that is the code for client name, and it auto populates it. And now I want the date of birth. So I'm going to do client. And hopefully it comes up with a list of client stuff. There we go. And we can look for date of birth right here. Okay. Then we hit save. Once that saves, we can run it on the front end. Okay, so now that that's in, we can go back to our projects, do a quick refresh. Go back to our intake section. to the bottom. And now we see that PDF DocGen. So I'm just gonna hit that and hit generate. And it pulls in the data accordingly.
You can edit PDFs as well. It's a little bit different than the Word. Obviously, you didn't see it open up into Microsoft Word. You do it all from this page. It is limited. This by no means replaces Adobe PDF, but there are like a few editing things that you can do here. Awesome. Any other questions that we could answer for you all? Glad you have a new obsession. Perfect. While we wait for any other questions to come through, I did place a few links in our chat. I put my email as well as Danielle's email in there so that you all have access to that. We also have hourly support. So if you all are currently in Filevine and you're like, hey, we could use a little help with DocGens or really anything Filevine related, we have a few support options. So you can have us as hourly support where you're like, hey, we need an hour's worth of work each month on just little things, little maintenance things. You can have us reserved for a full block. So if you have a longer list of things that you know that you want to accomplish, we can get that taken care of. Or if you love us that much, you can add us to your team as full-time, and we'll work as a member of your team on your account specifically for as long as you'd like. We are a month-to-month service. So there's no obligation to go past a month or kind of whatever you all have decided upon with your optimizer. We have firms that, you know, sign on for a few months, take a break, come back once they've had additional items or anything like that. And then we also have kind of our free help schedule and recordings listed there as well. If you've been in Filevine for a while and would like a Filevine audit, because you're like, hey, we're probably not utilizing this to the best of our ability, or there are new functions that come out that we haven't had a chance to tackle yet. We do also offer Filevine audits for free. Our team will go in and will essentially look at your Filevine and say, hey, here are some ways that you can improve your Filevine, whether it be a template audit or a usage audit. I'm going to go ahead and pop that in there as well. If you would like to take advantage of our free Filevine audits, feel free to reach out to Danielle or myself and we'll get you connected with someone to be able to do that. They'll send you kind of their findings and you have the option to say, hey, yes, we want you to help us tackle this list. And then we can get started kind of on that. We run the gamut on all things Filevine, automations, Domo, Periscope, Lead Docket, Demands AI, FVDA. We kind of do it all. We also have some additional dashboards for some of those products as well. So if those are anything that you're interested in, definitely feel free to reach out to us. We can help you out. If there are questions on FVDA, you'd like to see a demo, or you're like, hey, we probably need help with FVDA getting it implemented, we can look into either hourly services or block services to make sure that you're up and running and successful in whatever you choose to do in Filevine. Doesn't look like there's any other questions that have come through.
Cameron asked before in DocGens, can you have logos and headers? And I said yes, but yes, you can absolutely, you would just have your letter as you typically would on your letterhead prepared. And once you do that, you just code the document as you saw me do earlier, and the letterhead logos, all of that will stay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah.
Again, if you all need anything, feel free to reach out. If not, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And thanks again so much, Danielle. You're
Thanks.
amazing.
Thanks, Jasmine.
All right. Have a
Bye,
good one.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.